Welcome to English Bookshelf, where every book becomes your new friend and every summary gives you a new lesson. What if I told you that the man trying to take humans to Mars, the man who changed electric cars forever, the man who rebuilt rockets, satellites, AI, and even social media, is driven not by comfort, not by happiness, but by chaos? This is not a success story. This is a survival story. This is the story of Elon Musk. Before the rockets, before Tesla, before SpaceX, before the world knew his name, there was a quiet, awkward child growing up in South Africa. A child who was bullied so badly that he once landed in the hospital. A child who escaped reality not by running away, but by reading. Books became his refuge. Science fiction became his teacher. And inside those pages, a dangerous idea was born that life could be bigger than survival, that humanity could become a multi-planet species. Walter Isaacson doesn't paint Elon Musk as a hero. He paints him as a storm, a man with unmatched vision and unbearable intensity, a man whose brilliance builds the future and whose darkness destroys relationships. Elon's childhood was not warm. His father, Errol Musk, was brilliant, harsh, and emotionally damaging. Elon absorbed that hardness early. He learned to suppress emotions. He learned that feelings slow you down. This emotional armor would later help him survive impossible pressure, but it would also make him ruthless. At 17, Elon left South Africa with one goal: to reach America, the land of innovation. He worked odd jobs. He slept on couches. He coded at night. Hunger, discomfort, and fear never stopped him. They sharpened him. His first big success came with Zip2, a software company he co-founded. When it sold, Elon became a millionaire. But he didn't celebrate. Instead, he felt angry. Angry that he wasn't in control. Angry that he was forced out. That anger followed him into PayPal, where his obsession with perfection made him difficult, intense, and eventually fired as CEO while he was on his honeymoon. Most people would slow down. Elon accelerated. With the money from PayPal, he didn't buy luxury. He bought risk. He poured his fortune into 3 impossible ideas: rockets, electric cars, and renewable energy. Experts laughed. Engineers doubted. Investors warned him. SpaceX nearly failed. 3 rockets exploded. Elon burned through almost all his money. Tesla was weeks from bankruptcy. His marriage collapsed. His health suffered. He slept on factory floors. He screamed at employees. He demanded the impossible. And then, the 4th rocket worked. That single success changed everything. Walter Isaacson reveals how Elon Musk operates differently from normal leaders. He uses what Isaacson calls demon mode. When a crisis hits, Elon becomes emotionally cold, hyper-focused, and brutally direct. He cuts costs without mercy. He pushes teams beyond human limits. He doesn't care about excuses, only results. This is why SpaceX now dominates space launches. This is why Tesla forced the entire auto industry to go electric. This is why people both admire and fear him. But the cost is heavy. Elon's personal life is filled with broken relationships, emotional distance, and children who struggle to understand him. He believes empathy is overrated, that progress requires pain, that softness kills innovation. Walter Isaacson doesn't judge him. He simply shows the truth. Elon Musk is not a balanced man. He is not a happy man. He is a necessary man for the future he wants to build. He believes civilization is fragile, that humanity could collapse, that only bold risk takers can prevent extinction. Mars is not a dream for him, it is insurance. And that belief drives everything. This book teaches us that greatness is not gentle, that world-changing ideas often come from deeply flawed people, that focus, obsession, and willingness to suffer separate dreamers from builders. As this story continues, we will dive deeper into SpaceX's near-death moments, Tesla's manufacturing hell, Elon's leadership psychology, his controversial decisions, and the question no one dares to ask. Is the future worth the price Elon Musk demands? After the first success, the world began to notice Elon Musk. But fame never softened him. In fact, it made him more dangerous. Because once Elon tasted the power of proving everyone wrong, he became addicted to it. SpaceX was no longer just a startup trying to survive. It became a mission. Elon didn't want to copy NASA. He wanted to reinvent space itself. He questioned every cost, every design, every tradition. Why were rockets so expensive? Why couldn't they be reused? Why should space belong only to governments? Engineers argued. Experts resisted. Elon ignored them. Walter Isaacson describes how Elon Musk operates with something called first principles thinking. Instead of accepting how things are done, he breaks everything down to the most basic truths and rebuilds from scratch. This approach allowed him to reduce rocket costs dramatically, but it also made working with him emotionally exhausting. At SpaceX, failure was not tolerated, but it was expected. Elon pushed teams into impossible timelines. He slept at the factory. He personally reviewed designs at 10 a.m. If something broke, he wanted answers immediately. If an engineer said something couldn't be done, Elon would simply say, "Try harder." Many quit. Some broke down. But those who survived became elite builders. Meanwhile, Tesla was becoming its own battlefield. Tesla was never meant to be just a car company. For Elon, it was a weapon against climate collapse. He believed fossil fuels were killing the planet and that governments were too slow to act. So once again, he decided to force the future. The Model S changed how people saw electric cars. But the real nightmare began with the Model 10. Walter Isaacson calls this period production hell. Tesla tried to automate everything too fast. Robots failed. Assembly lines collapsed. Money drained. The company was weeks away from death. Elon moved into the factory. He slept on the floor. He stopped going home. This is where Elon's darker side fully emerged. He fired people instantly. He humiliated managers in meetings. He sent brutal emails at midnight. He demanded loyalty above comfort. For Elon, pain was proof of commitment. But slowly, painfully, the Model 10 line began to work. And then something extraordinary happened. Tesla survived. Not only survived, it exploded. The SAM company, mocked by Wall Street, became the most valuable car company on earth. And Elon Musk, once laughed at, became the richest man alive. But money didn't calm him. Instead, he turned his attention to new frontiers. Neuralink was born from his fear of artificial intelligence. Elon believes AI could become humanity's greatest threat. His solution wasn't to slow AI down, but to merge humans with machines. Neuralink aimed to implant chips into brains, allowing humans to interact directly with technology. Critics called it science fiction. Elon called it necessary. Then came Starlink. Thousands of satellites in orbit, providing internet to the entire planet. Not for profit alone, but to fund Mars. Everything always led back to Mars. Walter Isaacson makes it clear, Elon Musk is obsessed with making humans a multi-planet species. He believes Earth is fragile. War, climate change, AI, any of these could end civilization. Mars, for him, is not an escape. It's a backup drive for humanity. This obsession explains his extreme behavior, his lack of patience, his disregard for social norms, his willingness to sacrifice everything, including himself. Elon's personal life continued to fracture. Relationships failed. Marriages ended. His children struggled to connect with him. He loved them, but he didn't know how to show it. Work always came first, mission before emotion. And then came Twitter. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, the world was shocked. He renamed it X, fired thousands, changed policies overnight, declared war on moderation. For Elon, free speech was essential to civilization, even if it created chaos. Walter Isaacson doesn't excuse these decisions. He explains them. Elon thrives in chaos. When systems are stable, he gets bored. When everything is breaking, he becomes alive. This is the paradox of Elon Musk. He builds the future by breaking the present. And as this story continues, we move into the most controversial questions of all. The cost of his leadership, the damage he leaves behind, and whether humanity can afford both his genius and his madness. To understand Elon Musk, you have to understand one uncomfortable truth. He does not seek happiness. He seeks meaning. And for him, meaning comes from struggle. Walter Isaacson reveals that Elon is most alive when everything is on the edge of collapse. When deadlines are impossible. When failure feels inevitable. That is when his mind sharpens, his instincts take over, and his so-called demon mode activates. This mode is not about anger. It's about urgency. Elon believes that comfort is the enemy of progress. He believes pressure reveals truth, and he applies that pressure relentlessly to his companies, to his teams, and to himself. At SpaceX, this mindset led to miracles. Reusable rockets were once considered unrealistic. Engineers warned that landing rockets vertically was too risky, too expensive, too complex. Elon ignored them. He pushed. He demanded simulations, tests, failures, and more failures. And then one day, the Falcon 9 booster landed. That moment changed space history. What once cost billions could now be reused. Launches became cheaper. Space became accessible. NASA, once skeptical, became a customer. Elon Musk didn't just build rockets. He changed the economics of space. But for every breakthrough, there was a cost. Employees describe working for Elon as both the most meaningful and the most traumatic experience of their lives. He inspired people to achieve what they never thought possible, and then burn them out completely. Walter Isaacson shares stories of engineers breaking down, quitting without notice, and others staying for years despite the emotional toll. They stayed because they believed in the mission. They stayed because Elon made them feel part of something historic. This is Elon's greatest strength as a leader. He doesn't motivate with comfort. He motivates with purpose. Yet purpose can become obsession. As Tesla and SpaceX grew, Elon's behavior became more erratic. He tweeted impulsively. He picked public fights. He ignored public relations advice. He spoke without filters. Sometimes, it hurt his companies. Stock prices fell. Lawsuits followed. Critics attacked. Elon didn't care. Walter Isaacson explains that Elon has a deep resistance to authority. He distrusts institutions. He dislikes rules. He believes progress comes from individuals willing to challenge systems even if they look reckless. This trait made him a revolutionary entrepreneur. It also made him unpredictable. Elon's relationship with risk is unlike most people's. Where others see danger, he sees opportunity. Where others slow down, he accelerates. This is why he invested billions into unproven technologies. Why he challenged governments. Why he refused to play safe. But risk does not only affect business. Elon's personal relationships suffered deeply. He struggled with empathy. He struggled with emotional availability. His partners often felt ignored, misunderstood, or pushed aside. Walter Isaacson doesn't hide this. He shows how Elon's emotional detachment, formed in childhood, became a survival mechanism and later a barrier. Elon loved intensely, but briefly. Work always pulled him back. Crisis always demanded his attention. Even fatherhood was complicated. He wanted his children to be strong, independent thinkers. But his methods were harsh, expectations were high, vulnerability was rare. And yet, behind the armor, there was fear. Fear of stagnation, fear of irrelevance, fear that humanity might fail. This fear drove everything. It's what pushed him toward artificial intelligence debates, toward warnings about civilization collapse, toward building systems meant to outlast him. Walter Isaacson makes one thing clear: Elon Musk is not trying to be liked. He is trying to be useful. And usefulness, in his mind, comes at a price. As we move forward, we'll confront the biggest question this book raises. Not whether Elon Musk is a genius, that is obvious, but whether his way of changing the world is sustainable. Can humanity afford leaders who demand so much? Can progress exist without compassion? And what lessons should we actually take from a man like Elon Musk? As Elon Musk's power grew, so did the contradictions inside him. The same man who inspired thousands to build the future also alienated many who stood closest to him. Walter Isaacson showed us that Elon lives in extremes. There is no middle ground. Everything is either urgent or irrelevant, brilliant or useless, essential or disposable. This mindset allowed Elon to move faster than anyone else. While competitors debated, he acted. While others waited for permission, he rewrote the rules. But speed has consequences. Tesla's rise turned Elon into a public figure beyond business. He became a symbol. To some, he was a visionary saving the planet. To others, he was a reckless billionaire playing with markets, laws, and people's lives. Elon ignored both praise and criticism. What mattered was momentum. Then came one of the most controversial chapters of his life, the acquisition of Twitter. Walter Isaacson describes this moment as impulsive, emotional, and deeply personal. Elon saw Twitter not as a company, but as a digital battlefield. He believed free speech was under threat, that platforms were manipulating narratives, and that civilization depended on open dialogue. So he bought it. What followed was chaos. Mass layoffs, policy changes overnight, engineers working non-stop, advertisers leaving, critics screaming, supporters cheering. Elon slept in the office again, reliving the familiar pattern of crisis-driven leadership. To Elon, this was normal. This was home. He renamed Twitter to X, signaling a vision far bigger than social media. He wanted an everything app, a digital nervous system for civilization, payments, communication, identity, all in one place. Whether that vision will succeed remains uncertain. But the pattern is clear. Elon does not fear failure. He fears stagnation. Walter Isaacson repeatedly emphasizes that Elon Musk's greatest weapon is his tolerance for pain. He endures stress that would crush most people. He accepts loneliness as the cost of ambition. He sacrifices comfort without hesitation. But pain, when unbalanced, leaves scars. Elon's emotional world remained fractured. He struggled to maintain long-term emotional connections. Moments of warmth were often followed by withdrawal. Crisis always pulled him back. And yet, despite everything, people kept following him. Why? Because Elon makes people feel part of history. Working for him is not just a job. It is participation in something bigger than oneself. A chance to say, I helped change the world. Walter Isaacson makes us confront an uncomfortable reality. Many of the technologies shaping our future exist because someone like Elon Musk was willing to be unbearable. Polite leaders don't disrupt industries. Balanced people rarely attempt the impossible. Comfort seekers don't rewrite civilization. This doesn't excuse the damage, but it explains the outcome. Elon Musk forces us to ask difficult questions about leadership, ambition, and progress. Should great achievements require great sacrifice? Is it acceptable to harm relationships in pursuit of world-changing goals? Where should the line be drawn? There are no easy answers. Elon himself doesn't claim to have them. He simply keeps moving forward. And as we reach the final part of this story, everything comes down to one final idea. What should we learn from Elon Musk? Not to copy him, but to understand what his life reveals about focus, obsession, courage, and cost. When the noise fades, when the headlines disappear, and when the arguments settle, one truth remains. Elon Musk is not a man trying to win approval. He is a man trying to outrun extinction. Walter Isaacson ends this journey not by praising Elon, and not by condemning him, but by asking us to look deeper, to see Elon Musk not as a billionaire, not as a celebrity, but as a reflection of something ancient and human, the need to build, to explore, to push beyond limits. Elon Musk believes that civilization is always closer to collapse than we admit. History, in his eyes, is fragile. Empires fall. Technology can destroy as easily as it can save. And if humanity wants to survive, it must keep moving forward, even when moving forward hurts. That belief explains everything. It explains why he risks billions without hesitation, why he demands impossible timelines, why he tolerates loneliness, criticism, and exhaustion. To Elon, comfort is dangerous. Stability is an illusion. Only progress matters. But the book also makes something else painfully clear. Progress without balance extracts a price. And Elon has paid that price repeatedly, through broken relationships, emotional distance, and moments of deep isolation. Walter Isaacson shows us a man who understands systems better than emotions. A man who can design rockets but struggles with empathy. A man who can inspire millions yet fail to protect those closest to him. And still, people follow him. Because Elon Musk represents a rare kind of courage. Not the courage to look good, but the courage to be disliked. The courage to fail publicly. The courage to attempt what others label impossible. This is where the real lesson of this book lies. You do not need to become Elon Musk. You do not need to copy his harshness or his extremes. But you can learn from his clarity. Clarity of purpose. Clarity of priorities. Clarity about what truly matters to you. Elon's life reminds us that focus is power. That obsession, when guided by meaning, can bend reality. That fear should not decide the size of our dreams. At the same time, his story warns us that ambition without compassion can isolate. That success without emotional intelligence can feel empty. That building the future should not require destroying the present. Elon Musk is not a role model. He is a case study. A reminder that greatness is complicated. That vision often comes with shadows. And that changing the world is never free. As this book closes, one question stays with us. What are you willing to sacrifice for the life you want to build? Because in the end, Elon Musk's story is not about rockets or cars or Mars. It's about choice. About deciding what matters enough to give everything for. And having the courage to live with the cost. And that is the real power of this book. If this summary inspired you, subscribe to English Bookshelf for more stories, more learning, and more inspiration. Until the next book, keep reading, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.